A very good afternoon and welcome to this session of D Talks or Disruptive Literacy Talks. I'm your host, Mashood Bhatt. Um, when we talk about universal foundation literacy and numeracy and meeting the SDG 4 goals, uh, uh, the the learning, the empowerment, and the literacy and education of women is one of the most critical fulcrums that will really help achieve universal goals of foundational literacy and education. Uh, as we are well aware that if the mother of the family is empowered, then the development outcomes and the educational outcomes of children uh, are automatically the does not have any limit. And to speak on this, on how working on not just literacy but also going beyond literacy on women empowerment, how can we lead disruptive reform for women and children? We have a very special guest. He is the president of the ICICI Foundation for Inclusive Growth. In his capacity as the president of the foundation, he's responsible for ensuring that the activities of the foundation are executed to its full potential. Uh, our guest today, he also has been a leading figure in steering the activities of the foundation, be it the ICICI Digital Villages. He has also, apart from his role in the foundation, he's also leading the business head trusts, associations, societies, and clubs, and the government banking group at the ICICI Bank. And he's also leading the infrastructure management and services group and the business continuity management group at the ICICI Bank. It is an absolute honor for us to welcome our guest for today, Shri Saurabh Singh ji. Saurabh ji, thank you so much for joining us in today's talk. To begin with, Saurabh ji, we have, we followed the work which ICICI Foundation for Inclusive Growth has been doing, and some phenomenal work being done in the area of developing skills, with focus on women empowerment. Uh, would you like to share as to what was the vision behind all the initiatives of ICICI Foundation when it was set up, and how is this vision being taken forward at the present time?
Thank you, Bashut, and thanks a lot for the nice introduction. See, when we say ICICI, the first thing which should be recalled is ICICI was set up as a development finance institution. And from day of inception till today, it has participated in the development of the Indian economy. So development has been one of the goals and agenda which every leader at ICICI has been implementing wholeheartedly. And today we are talking of CSR, we are talking of foundations. Development as an agenda for ICICI has been for several decades. And ICICI always thought of India as an economy and tried to identify gaps that for economic development of this country, what are the gaps which are needed, which should be fulfilled, and how an institution like ICICI could contribute. So there are several institutions, in the area of fashion technology, or if you're talking of some rating agencies, you're talking of some even organizations like stockholding. But there's several organizations which were missing links in the economy, were thought through along with many other players in the market, along with the government, and were set up. So what I'm trying to say is that ICICI always thought of the country first and always believed that if the country develops, every institution in the country will develop. And for development of the country, you need many institutions which will help other individuals develop and participate in the economic development of the country. So that has been the role model, and now part of it is ICICI Foundation, which was set up in 2008. And from 2008, there have been several structured activities which were going on. 2014, when the CSR Act came in, then we tried to align ourselves with the CSR Act, and there's very little alignment required because when your motives are very clear and clean, I mean, whatever the government is formulating is also formulating based on past experiences. So very easily we could align ourselves with the government, and ICSF Foundation now runs the development agenda of inclusive growth. So the inclusive growth part of development agenda is run by ICSF Foundation on behalf of all ICSI group companies.
Thank you, Saurabh for sharing that vision. And it's quite remarkable that in the current system of CSR, and there's a lot of much more traction and conversation around CSR. But ICICI Foundation was much ahead of the curve. Even before this governance structure of CSR came in. Um, what we've also seen is the ICICI Foundation focusing a lot on women empowerment as this one instrument of overall inclusive growth. Would you like to share as to what was the story behind this focus on women empowerment and literacy and education of the women as this major agenda and major focus of the foundation?
You can interpret this in two parts. One part is economics, second part is society. If you look at economics, very clearly, if you are leaving aside a major portion of your population from the normal commercial or economic activities of the country, you are losing somewhere as a country. And if you make efforts to include them, you are a beneficiary as a country. That's one part. So, if you look at larger macroeconomics, the more people participate in the economic activities, the better is the growth of the country. Now, if you look at it as a society, in the society, there are issues with related to role of women, role of men, and we are not social reformers. So I would not want to comment on the social issues. But at the same time, what we are saying that if we are able to bring in these women as part of the active economic society, it's resulting in tremendous amount of change which has not been experienced in the past. So we have to give you example. I mean, we work with a large. Today that group is about 10,000 women on a dairy project in Bhopalgarh district in Jodhpur. Now the whole project is around dairy, the value chain of milk, and how the milk can be collected, how the animal health has to be managed, how the hygiene of animal stay has to be managed, and in turn, how additional cash income can be generated for the women. When you look at the output, first is because you have trained people on hygiene, the entire household hygiene has improved. Because if they've seen live that animal health and hygiene, depending on the cleanliness maintained and proper vaccination practices, same thing is true for human being. So those practices have moved from the cattle shed to the household. Then you look at feeding habits and you're training them that the food should have a percentage of protein. Same thing is valid for human beings. So the food habits, and when the income grows, then there is an empowerment which has happened, because the lady of the house who did not have cash to spend and would always be asking the male member for cash, today is empowered with cash. It's not huge amount of cash, but there is cash, and that's sustainable cash. That has resulted in better attendance at schools and has resulted in better quality of health, hygiene, nutrition. So every aspect that we are seeing in a household changes with just 3 to 4,000 rupees additional cash income per month in the hand of the lady, not in the household. That earning has to be with the lady, and she's supposed to have the control of that money. And I'm saying in rural India, that additional 3 to 4,000 rupees cash makes a complete turnaround between a have not to have.
That's very remarkable and like a very interesting observation that you made. And but Our sense is that this must not be without its own challenges, because for a very a traditional system of family that we have, and very specific roles of each gender that we have, it must be quite a challenge to overcome these existing attitudes to help empower women. Was that any such challenges which your foundation faced in this work?
To be very frank, any initiative you take up in any part of the world, there'll always be challenges because the objective in the mind of the person initiating a project and the beneficiary will always be wide apart. So I may go to a place thinking I'll have this place developed and people should have cash income, and I'll have my methodology that this is how they should be doing it. But the people living there have lived there for centuries and they have their own practices which they would tend to follow. So in certain places
Mhm.
they may not want their women to come out, certain places they may not want their daughters to come out. So it's very important that everything is understood in a socio-economic uh, framework, and the social part has to be appreciated and make them understand the economic part. If you
Mm.
start trying to train them on social part, I think will be failure. So that's where my advice to my team is always understand the social part, align yourself with their social practices, and make them understand the economics and commerce. The two together is what works. And leave the social reforms to social reformers, not to CSR. That's not CSR. But yes, if you
Right, sir.
want examples, have we had failures? Of course, we have had failures. And well, would want to talk about successes. There would be several villages where, because of factionalism in the village, because of local politics or local issues, we've had to withdraw our projects and move away. So that's always going to happen. But the advantage is you are a country of 670,000 villages. So you're spoiled for choices. You can always go ahead. Almost 70 crore people staying in rural India. So there is no dearth of people who are wanting it, and there's no dearth of people who want to spoil it. So both are true. So you just need to identify it because the choice is mammoth.
Thank you, Saurabh for sharing that perspective. Um, when we look at uh, the current context where there's a lot of now focus both at the very top level of the government also on financial literacy and digital literacy, especially for women. And you did mention that there are certain challenges when it comes to a large scale adoption or a buy-in from the women beneficiaries and the communities towards such programs. Um, uh, ICICI Foundation, like you had earlier mentioned, works in both rural as well as urban areas. Would you like to share in terms of the foundation's approach to financial and digital literacy? Is a different approach required for rural areas vis-a-vis urban areas in your experience?
Yes. The See, the way we need to understand is when we say finance, finance means flow of money. So when you said, is there a difference between an urban area and rural area? The patterns, the way money flows is very different. So the first difference I would like to make is in an urban India, a person earns the money and then spends. In rural India, in most cases, people spend the money, then earn it. So when we say of farmers' indebtedness and farmers' loans, this is what I mean. That they spend the money, and when the crop is ready, they hand it over to the enterprise who's willing to buy it and pay them cash there and then. And of course, that results in cash losses. So that's the basic difference in the spending pattern. Now, how do you train people on financial inclusion? Because it's a very big moment wherein a majority of the country is now banking. So the way people moved directly to mobile phones without even seeing the landlines in rural India, same way they moved to debit cards without even seeing a bank account. So today in rural India, people refer to a bank account as a card. Card means the bank account. And the ATM is the most loved machine because it gives cash. They don't like the bank branch. So it's ATM and the card. So that's about the nature, the way I would like to describe the current situation. And when we're talking of financial inclusion, uh, in urban area, when you're speaking, you're primarily training people on how to manage cash, how to save some money, how to channelize it in proper investments. So these are things which are not very well understood because the urban population which we are talking also has its roots in rural India and they have migrated here. They need to save cash. They often support families at home. In most cases, they try and create the asset in their own places because the urban area where they're working, the asset is very expensive. So there is a lot of flow of money between urban India and rural India. But urban India understands money better. But what needs to be understood is the difference between capital and revenue. That's something which is not very well understood amongst the lower segment of the society. And whichever segment starts understanding the difference between capital and revenue, you'll see that that segment of the society starts developing better. And for the rest who are not into enterprise, for them, how some amount of smart saving for that dirty day, and how uh, they can keep some money, because typically there's this large segment of population which is uh, you can describe them as people who work for their needs. And if I don't have a need tomorrow, I'll not go for work. So some of these segments don't have a saving habit. They may not have a cupboard in the room they stay, and they are always insecure about, if I keep money, someone may steal it. So they don't have savings. And similar population also exists in rural India, which does not have a saving habit. So inculcating a habit of saving through talking to them on financial inclusion, that banks are not your enemies. Banks can help you park your funds, move your funds. Now, these are things which only a financial inclusion session can educate people, and we try our best to cover at least about 500,000 people every year through our financial inclusion model, and we try and cover between lower middle class to poor, every segment of the society. Wherever we can get a group of 20 to 40 people, we send our trainers. We have a large number of trainers. We also have digital programs, but we don't see the success of digital programs in this segment. And the success of such a program is also limited, because you can get people to sit and listen to you, but to understand and start trying what has been told or what has been trained is not very easy. So it is time taking, we understand, but then someone has to play that role. So at least 500,000 people every year we try and cover under a financial inclusion program. And in that program, we try and cover a lot of women because we understand that in our society, the critical fulcrum is women, and their habits of saving, their prudent habits of uh, investing properly on child's education or on the right things is so different from the men that focusing on the women gives you a lot more satisfaction than training men.
Right, sir. So, very, very important points and very important observations that you made. Truly, financial literacy is becoming a very crucial functional skill as well. And it's great that your team is focusing on that as well. Here, as we're also aware, and this is something which I wanted your thoughts on. We know that India still, unfortunately, is largely a country where we have an adult population, which is not having foundational literacy skills. According to the most recent estimates, India contributes to almost 37% of the world's adult population who is illiterate. Is that something which poses a challenge in your opinion to financial literacy and digital literacy programs?
See, if it's today 37%, in the past it would have been probably more. So, I mean, trying to compare with external benchmarks is something which doesn't gel to me. See, every economy has its own peculiarities, and that's where I keep telling everyone that India has 135 crore people. Why do we have? Because we are able to grow that much of grains and feed that many people. Otherwise, people would have died. 135 crores people surviving on the crop which is grown within India. And we also know that our agriculture productivity is low. So our agriculture land, which the country of India, can probably support another 30-40 crores of population. So why are we so worried? So I, we pick up an external benchmark and start getting worried. And then we start using terms like literacy. And literacy means qualification. And when we started our ICSA Academy of Skills, what was the purpose? The whole purpose was that we had academically literate people, uneducated. They were unable to find jobs. So we always read in the newspaper that as employers, there's a shortage of people whom we want to recruit. And on the other side, you have crores of youth who are jobless and seeking jobs. So there was a very clear divide between the two, which ICS Academy of Skills, with its courses, tried to bridge the gap, saying, fair enough, within 3 months, I will try and prepare people who are employable. So we started picking up students, we trained them, and made them employable. So, and now let me also give you example that we run certain programs for which literacy is not required. So one such program is geriatric care, which we also call it home health care. You don't need a formal education for that program. But today, what are the salaries? The salaries for such trained people is anywhere between 20,000 to 30,000 per month, which is far higher than a graduate can get. But try and get people to get trained in this. People will sit at home but will not get trained, will not work in this area. And India as a country needs some 500,000 of such people. And if you look at the world population, probably every uneducated person can be trained and deployed in this area and can earn a huge living. So I don't see literacy as a issue at all, because every Indian knows 50 words of English. Every Indian. irrespective of whether they got educated or not. And when I say 50 words, I'm being very responsible by saying road is an English word, station is an English word, bus is an English word. These are colloquial in India. So an illiterate in India also knows 50 words of English. And a person who knows 200 words of English can speak English. So there's only a 150 word gap between an illiterate Indian and an English speaking Indian. Now the problem looks very easy. So how we define the problem and how we roll it out will make the whole difference. I think illiterate Indians are also educated. They're not, I won't call them uneducated. Only thing, the pattern of their learning is different. They have skills, and yes, I mean, some numeracy skills, some writing skills, which is missing, can be added, but urban India may decide that they need it. I'm not sure whether they want it. Because when you try and train people in rural India, they have their own needs. So we may pick up statistics that this part of India doesn't have certified numeracy skills or certified literacy skills, but they're happy, they're making a living, they're running shops without any formal education. So I don't see that
Right.
as much as a challenge as much it is hype.
Right, sir. Thank you for sharing that perspective. I must say that it's a very interesting and very unique perspective. I think that that's something which you've really triggered a lot of thoughts, especially at our forum, where you're saying also that, and it's a new way to look at learning in the sense, right? Like if there are people who cannot read and write, but their learning curve or their learning journey might be unique, and the process of education is also unique and differently placed in their own context. So thank you for sharing that very interesting perspective, sir. One more question which we had, and you referred to it towards in the earlier part of the talk, where you mentioned about dairy as one of the skill development areas, and you mentioned some other areas as well. So broadly, if you'd like to please share with us as to which are the different areas of skill development that the foundation is focusing on, uh, and also some some successes and best practices that have emerged from these portfolio of skill development initiatives by ICICI Foundation.
See, what we do is whatever skill development you do. So, urban area we run 28 institutes, and all the programs are designed and run for the need of the industry. So, we have 10 knowledge partners, and we have almost about 1,300 regular recruiters with us. And we have continuous interaction between knowledge partners and recruiters and the students, so that all the programs are always relevant. Till COVID set in, we had a record of 100% placements. Even with COVID, with digital programs, we're still able to place 70 to 75% of our students. So, very clearly, all our programs are aligned with the need of the industry. And there are several players in the industry who look forward to every batch passing out because they know that they're going to get a free trained supply of manpower from there. Now, when we move to rural India will have a different need in every village. And the way we evaluate, there could be a surplus of something, there could be shortage of something, or there could be environmental issues which they are facing. And all these issues, under these headings, we then try and evaluate various areas, and we have built expertise within ourselves in these areas. And I'll give you examples of this. So uh, Udaipur as a belt has custard apple forests. When I say forest, that means it's a very clearly organic apple because it's growing wild in the forest. And we saw it being plucked and sold on the roadside for 2 to 3 rupees a kg. You give 20 rupees and you get a sack full of custard apples. And then we realized that there is a chance of adding value. So I said, when I mentioned surplus, that if there's surplus of something in some area, what do you do? So to manage that surplus, we thought of processing plant, and that's where we try to identify who is a potential social entrepreneur who will be interested in processing the custard apple. We found somebody, and with them we set up this process. So it was a joint effort between the forest department, the Udaipur Agriculture University, the social entrepreneur, and ICSA Foundation, and between the four together. So the forest department permitted officially the tribals to pluck custard apple from the forest and sell. So it was earlier not official, so they made it official as a forest produce that can be traded. The agriculture university came in and trained the tribals into pruning of custard apple trees and the way of plucking so that the fruit is not damaged. So from plucking the fruit, secatias were given to cut the fruit. So cut the branch to remove the fruit and not pull it away from the tree, which used to damage the fruit. Crates were given so that after cutting the fruit, they place it properly in the tray so that the percentage damage reduces. The entire produce would travel to the processing plant, pulp is taken out, and in a hygienic manner, the entire processing is run. And now the market is grown beyond 25 tons and it will continue to grow. And already more than 1,000 tribal women are involved in this process. And I'm talking of a belt. I don't know if people are aware that Udaipur to Mount Abu Road, traffic stops after dark because there's a lot of looting which used to happen. And this is the same population which is now getting active in commercial activity. So first activity was the jungle produce of custard apple processing. Second was jamun pulp. Now they're also growing and processing chana. So three activities they've got into the same population. Now we have with the self-help group we have setting up the second processing plant. So first was with an entrepreneur. Now there is a self-help group because there's scope, and the scope is so large that this fibrous pulp which is available in Udaipur is in demand by the ice cream industry and they're not able to get enough of it. So this is just one example. The other thing I can simply share is when we speak of population and population growth, and we have a very young population which will grow into adulthood. The other part is very proudly we keep saying that per capita income will keep growing. Now, as per capita income keeps growing, the nature of your food plate will keep changing. So when I say this, for the relatively poor, the food plate is carbohydrates. For the relatively rich, it's proteins. And then there are people at various stages in between. So as and when per capita income grows, the consumption of protein in the country will grow. And we have seen how at some point of time the price of pulses went through the roof because India is primarily a vegetarian protein consumer. So there is vegetarian protein, there is animal protein, and we feel that businesses which are running in this area will continue to do well in the long run. And if you promote production of protein in rural India, the consumption of protein also goes up. So it's a combination. Their health and nutrition improves, and protein being economically led. So we have linked proteins consumption to the growth in per capita income, and we try and explain to everyone that yes, it's a big opportunity to be in the business of protein. And when we say protein, it could be goatry, it could be fishery, it could be mushroom, it could be, I mean, poultry. Of course, is overdone, so we don't get into poultry. But backyard poultry we do promote for desi chicken, and we try and promote pulses, we try and promote paneer. So everything to do with protein we are promoting. Now, see, so what I was trying to say is that we've tried to convert some of these into themes, and we are trying to do it. One more interesting area I'll just mention. It's getting long, I know, uh, because I mentioned environment. See, environment is a challenge for some areas where there's water available in certain months, and then it's not available. So, are there interventions possible through CSR for the village as a unit that you can improve their water table? So, large scale, we have completed almost 500 schools where groundwater recharge has been done, because every school has a very large roof. So, using that roof to install groundwater recharge, and our experience, wherever we have done this unit, the groundwater table has improved. And improvement in groundwater table simply means that there'll be an additional crop, where people are able to take one single crop, they'll be able to take double. If they're doing double, they will be able to do triple. So groundwater recharge is something which is very much possible through school roofs. So that's on example on environment. We have large scale projects on human wildlife conflict. In most of the peripheries of forests, people depend on forest produce. So our teams are actively working around four tiger reserves on how to reduce dependence of villages on the periphery on the forest. And you have to be smarter, because if you start producing things which the animals love, they will come into the human territory. So you have to be very careful that you have to train and skill people to produce things which are not a favorite of animals and are only favorite of human beings, and generate livelihood so that these individuals don't have to enter the forest for livelihood. So these are the themes around which all our projects are done, and the final project could be anything, but we try to be thematic so that we are always clear in our mind on what we are doing. I think that was a long one.
Right. And a very valuable perspective, sir. And thank you so much for so elaborately helping us understand. It's quite remarkable the breadth of the themes that are covered by the foundation. Thank you so much for sharing that. One final question that we have, and you've really triggered a lot of ideas around skill development and ideas for of course the focus being on the female population, on women. There is a new education policy and talks about vocational skills and integrating vocational education and vocational skills with school education. And we have, the policy also talks about having community leaders and teachers to educators to come and develop these skills from an early age among school children. So what would your views be on that, and what do you think should be the role of corporates and CSRs? They bring in so much technical advanced knowledge on vocations. What do you think should be the road ahead with respect to vocational education in schools and the role of CSR in it?
See, one unfortunate part is that whenever we make a policy and all, we always link it to teaching. And the biggest profession in India is agriculture, wherein very clearly 40% of the population is directly dependent on agriculture. Tell me, who trains a person for agriculture? Children of agriculturists are trained to become clerks. The reverse will never be true. And for a child of agriculturist, we have never trained them into modern agricultural practices. So, in my mind, a big favor all CSR can do is by ensuring that there are enough good quality technical inputs available for the farmers. Farmers don't understand the modern agricultural practices. They don't understand residue free agriculture, forget talking of organic, and they're wasting pesticide, they're wasting fertilizer, that's a higher input cost. And there are lot of traditional practices which other countries have learned from India. And I just want to narrate one small incident. There was a large group of Australian farmers who came to India, and they were from the state of Tasmania, and they were all into growing almonds. And because they were almond farmers, they had a large issue of pollination of their almond flowers, and they spent millions of dollars to pollinate their almond flowers. And they happened to visit Kashmir, and they asked this question: how do you pollinate your almond trees? And the farmers did not have an answer. The farmers don't have an answer because this problem never exists in India. And then someone else had to think through and tell them that look at what they're doing. They're simply planting mustard in the same field. Mustard attracts insects, and those insects are pollinating the almond. Why do you need to spend millions of dollars on getting bee boxes to pollinate your almonds? So there are some frugal Indian ways of agriculture which are available, which world learns from us. And I mean, leaving ducks in a paddy field. These are very small things, but Indians have forgotten. So the CSR has to play a role of bringing knowledge to the farming community, which is very large, and improving their productivity. And if the farm level productivity improves, I keep saying this again and again, that urban taxpayers are today financing farmers. If we make farmers self sustainable, if we improve their income levels, then they don't need any of these benefits. They'll be self sustainable, and it's doable and possible. So let the CSR, part of the CSR, work on this area, on how to make agriculture technology better, and their understanding better with farmers, so that agriculture productivity improves.
Right, Saurabh ji. Thank you so much for sharing those perspectives. And I think as we move towards the end of this talk, we I mean the work which has been done by the foundation on women empowerment is truly inspiring. And we here at the Global Dream Literacy Movement also believe that the the empowerment of women is right at the very center of any development initiative that we take. And we wanted to show you and the audience a very a short video which is about a campaign, a name literacy campaign that we had started, where we believe that the name of a person is the most important identity for anyone. And if someone is unable to read or write their name, then can everyone take the challenge to make at least one person, especially a woman who is not able to read and write her name, to become name literate. So we just wanted to share this very short video for you and the audience.
मेरा नाम पुनीता देवी है, मियाँ बीवी है, 3 बच्चे हैं। मैं कभी स्कूल नहीं गई थी। अब माँ बाप नहीं पढ़ाए होंगे, नहीं भेजे होंगे, परिवार में कोई नहीं पढ़ा, भाई थोड़ा बहुत पढ़े होंगे। बच्चे 5 तलक 3 तलक पढ़ाए थे बच्चे के, हस्बैंड की तबीयत खराब हो गया तो छोड़ दिए, पैसे नहीं बचे थे। अब लग रहा हमको पढ़ा लिखा जरूरी है, जब सुनीता दीदी नाम लिखाने लगी तो।
आप पुनीता है जी, राइट? ठीक है, आपको नाम लिखना आता है?
नहीं। उनके मम्मी के पास काम करते थे तो पता चला जब वो अंगूठा लगाती है, साइन नहीं कर पाती है, तो बोलाई नाम तो लिख लीजिए, बैंक में जाएंगे तो साइन करना पड़ेगा, अंगूठा जो लगाती हूँ मिट जाएगा ये अंगूठा। अब ये लगता है जो नाम लिखने आ गया दीदी के द्वारे, तो ये नाम सिखाने लगी, नाम लिखाने लगी। हो गए 10 दिन तो हो ही गए, 10 दिन। जैसे मेरे पास टाइम मिलता है तैसे हम आ जाते हैं, कभी 15 मिनट, कभी 20 मिनट। वही शर्म आ रही थी, घबराहट हो रही थी, मैं हाथ पकड़ के पढ़ाया, कहा कि ऐसे लिखो दीदी, ऐसे लिखो। बच्चे को मालूम ही नहीं, अभी हमने बताया नहीं, न हम अपना हस्बैंड के बताए न बच्चे के बताए। 4-5 दिन
ठीक है।
वो चित्र दिखा के पढ़ाई। इसके बाद फिर दीदी नाम लिख के देती थी, जे ये लिखो दीदी, तो कहीं गलत हो जाता था, कहीं सही हो जाता था, कहीं ना आ जाएगा धीरे धीरे। पू नी ता दे दी, हाँ भाई जाते थे, अंगूठा लगा दे तभी शर्म आती थी। तो हम कहीं साइन नहीं करने देगा, कहेगा जे आप तो अंगूठा लगाती हैं, साइन कैसे करने देंगे? कहेंगे अब हम पढ़ चुके हैं तो नाम लिखना आ गया तो हम साइन करेंगे।
Great. So this was one very wonderful learner that we started the name literacy challenge with, and just towards the end, we would like to once again invite Dr. Sunita Gandhi, who's been intently listening to Saurabh ji, and Sunita ji, the ICICI Foundation under Saurabh ji's leadership has been doing amazing work in women empowerment and skill development. So any concluding comments or questions for sir?
Well, I have a number of questions actually, but I know time is of essence here. I wanted to add to this name literacy thing that it is completely, simple. And we made a PPT so anyone can just take the PPT and run with it. You don't need to necessarily go through any hula hoops or sign up or register or anything of that nature. Just take the PPT from our website and start teaching. And it's a process, a 7 sitting process, and some learners learn it in 4 sittings. They know how to write their name, and we don't have to teach them the alphabet first, which is really usually the way it has been done in the past. So that's a major departure, that we use sounds, and first sound, second sound, third sound, so if you like syllables, and the learner is taught to write like as a pattern, and there's a pattern 1, 2, 3, 4. So the idea being very, very empowering for the learner to be able to write their name. It's such a simple thing. It takes maybe an hour of a volunteer's time overall, maybe hour and a half, and in 6 sittings, 5 sittings, 4 sittings, they are able to learn to write their name. So I think there are lots of things that individuals can do. We don't have to wait for somebody to organize us. We don't have to wait for any kind of other arrangements. A lot can be done if literate people can tie up with the illiterate people and teach them. And one staggering data that I found was that 9.6% the illiterate can be seen as belonging to families who are illiterate by and large. And so those families constitute just 9.6% of the illiterate population. I mean, of the total population. So, in essence, we only need to go to these families and we'll have overcome the problem of illiteracy of adult literates. So, we've been doing a lot of manan thinking, what can be done, how can it be done, uh, and without too many hula hoops. So, what are your views on, say, a people's movement in which everybody gets empowered to do something about the problem rather than just wait for the government to give handouts or do different things, or foundations such as yours to give handouts and do certain things?
See, 135 crore people, 6,70,000 villages with multiple climate conditions, multiple levels of income. I mean, the need in this country is so huge. I mean, any area and every area you pick up, there's tremendous amount of work to be done. So there is no debate on the needs. And I keep telling people that because ICSR Foundation is focusing on one area, it does not mean that we are ignoring something else. The funds you have, the manpower you have, it's good to focus on something, because it's very clear that there are a lot of people who are focusing on education. If you look at the policies of public sector banks, they're supposed to spend 60% of their funds on education or health. So that's a guideline which has been given to them. So I mean, I never debate on the number of areas which India needs. Anything you touch, you'll find a crore of people, 2 crore of people who need support. Now, everyone has to decide what they can do, what they're good at, and how they want to do based on their objectives. But yes, I 100% agree that 50% of the country needs some kind of a hand holding or support.
That also that ordinary people can make a big difference. It doesn't
Yes,
have to be organized sector.
need not be
Uh,
organized.
right, right. What is your
So what
special
I
take?
say, well, typically
G.
I openly say that we always have to differentiate between development and philanthropy. And in my mind, I am very clear. My personal income and my personal money, I donate for philanthropy. But when I think foundation, I think of development. So in my mind, I have a clear distinction. So there have been several instances where someone has come for a donation, and I felt for the cause and I've given personal money.
Well, this is definitely a mystery area. The distinction between philanthropy and development, and your personal take on it. Of course, we as individuals would give, but then you're saying as an organization they should not give in a way.
No, I'm not saying
Bec-
you should not give. I said that I will never try and define an area that you should do this or you should do that. I said at ICSA Foundation, we stay away from philanthropy. But is there a method of philanthropy? Yes. Employees contribute from the salary, and that money is available for philanthropy. But when it comes to the foundation money, we try and make use of it for development of larger scale. So we look at individuals' uh, livelihood or skill development, or investing in villages or investing in healthcare. We've invested almost 200 crores on COVID-19, and we're very clear that we're not giving donations, so we've given equipment worth 200 crores.
it's a very subtle difference. You've done obviously a lot of understanding of those subtleties. Where do you draw the line? What falls in and what falls out.
Yes.
So that's very interesting because you're funding equipment, but not direct aid to the patient or somebody who needs it. Um, so yes, I mean it's all help, it's all necessary. It's just I'm curious about development versus philanthropy. That distinction is still not very clear to me, but maybe one or two examples will help. I'm not sure, and that could be my last question, really.
Yeah, so I mean, let's say so far we would have bought some 200 dialysis machines and got it installed, so that very low cost dialysis is available to people. So we try and invest in the health infrastructure. So COVID is much later. Before that, we had started work on dialysis because the cost of dialysis is prohibitive, and people who can't afford just can't afford. So and we are trying to build the health infrastructure which is available to a larger population. Now, what happens in philanthropy? You're saying a particular individual needs money for a particular care. Now, that's not auditable. I cannot keep donate. I shouldn't use the word I. You cannot use institutions' money to keep handing over. You'll have a queue outside your office for those doles. So, I mean, if seriously some cause has come to me, I've given my personal money. Fine, someone needed an operation and they needed money for that. I request my friends. I give my money and I'd give it. But I would use the CSR money for a health infrastructure. If I have to use it, I mean, like I said, groundwater recharging, so that the water can be used by several people in the village. So, I mean, we are focusing on economic development, which will create a surplus, and at the same time, the other approach is how you can bring down the cost of certain services which are unaffordable today. So two-pronged approach. So health services, education anyway is free. So if health services can improve and can come at a very low cost, and you have improved the income of the people who did not have cash income, the two together, you have improved the economy. You have made a sustainable impact because it's you've created an infrastructure which will get paid for from that cash income. And the moment cash starts flowing, and I'll give you a small example. You pick up any village, you'll not get more than 100 people who are really interested in uh, additional livelihood. But that 100, with those 100, you are able to generate 3,000 rupees a month. That's 3 lakhs. And 36 lakhs additional cash income in the village will change the village economy. Because what is in short supply in villages is cash. Food is not in short supply. Between the PDS and whatever they grow, they have enough food grains. That's not in shortage. So cash in shortage. So if you can generate cash in any village, the economy will improve. And if you have done it in a cluster of villages, the cluster's economy will improve. The doctors will want to come in because they'll get paid in cash. Today, why a doctor doesn't want to be in rural India? Because no one has the cash to pay them. So it's a similar approach where you start from. If you do it on philanthropy, you'll end up spending money on individuals. But if you do it at a scale, you'll do it for hundreds and thousands of people at a large scale. Are you neglecting few individuals who are in currently need of money? Maybe the answer is yes. But is it the purpose of CSR or is it the purpose of foundation? I don't know. I don't think
Okay.
so. That is the real purpose.
Yeah.
I don't think so. That is the real purpose of a foundation. In my mind, a foundation should be looking at development work, and individuals should continue with philanthropy in and around where they stay, where they have studied, the hospitals they go.
Yeah, points well taken actually, because I used to work for the World Bank in Washington, and 10 years I was an economist there. And basically, we are looking at macro level as well, so anything that lends to a larger, you're a big foundation, a larger impact, that of course you can't take care of every little itsy bitsy detail of how money flows into someone's account, but at the macro level, those decisions have to be made. Is it going to move agendas? Is it going to really actually make a dent? Fair enough.
Right. Great. On that note, we would like to thank Mr. Saurav Singh ji for giving us his very valuable time in today's session, and you've covered a lot of breadth. I mean, it's quite remarkable the breadth of things that we have covered. Generally we focuses on foundational literacy and numeracy, but we've got like so many insights in terms of financial literacy, digital literacy, women empowerment, all the way to agriculture, and it's phenomenal that when we are looking at any issue, even if it's one sector of education, there is so much more that we need to see when we zoom out, and that can be relevant to education as well. So thank you once again, Saurabh ji, for your wonderful ideas. And we really appreciate the time you've given us. And thank you, Sunita ji, as well, for joining us. To those who are joining us live, we hope that we've had a lot of ideas and triggers that Saurabh ji has shared, which you can also adapt and replicate in your different contexts. And thank you once again, and we'll see you in the next session of Detox.
Thank you.